Alright, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to go over how to export a FBX object and bring it into our Unity project. So the first thing we want to do is have Maya open. You're going to want to make sure your object is prepared and modeled, edited, textured, all that good stuff. The first thing you want to make sure is that this is not using a default material. So in this case, I want to make sure I rename this. Well, not rename it. I previously added a separate material and then connected the texture, but I can change the material right here. I'll call it fence matte since I modeled a fence and this is the material for it. I call it fence matte. And then with this selected, we can go into our UV editor and we can make sure we have our UVs, which we do. Those are right here. And then once we have all that, we are ready to export. So the first thing we want to do is drag select everything that's going to go over to Unity. We go to File, Export Selection, and we're going to see this pop up. We're going to select Desktop. I'm going to name this whatever the object is. And then on the right side right here, I'm going to expand this a little so you can see. In this section, we're going to choose two options. So what we're going to want to do is go into File Type and Include, and then Embed Media, and we're going to choose Embed Media right here. And we're going to make sure that's on. And then we're going to go to Advanced Options, and under FBX file format, we're going to choose Binary FBX 2013. If you don't choose 2013, you could get issues with your textures or other things. 2013 seems to be the way to go when it comes to exporting to Unity. And then after that, make sure you have Embed Media on and 2013 Binary under FBX file format, which is under the advanced options. And all of that is under file type specific options. Then you're going to go ahead and hit export, and it's going to create an FBX on your desktop like this. You can see here. And then once you have this here on your desktop, you're going to want to have your Unity project open. So I'm going to scale it down a bit for you to see, so you see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to delete these folders so you can see what we would do in this case, because I want to have you see all the steps. So with this out here in Unity open, we can go into our assets folder, make sure this is, you probably have a different hierarchy because this was an older project that I'm working on right now. And if you right click or inside your own asset section, you right click and add a new folder and call it meshes or call it props, either one. I like to go with meshes for objects that have been modeled. And then we finalize that, hit enter. So we've got this meshes folder. Then we open that up and we just drag our FBX straight into this folder. Once we've done that, I'll show you real quick. If you right click in here and go to show in Explorer, you can see if we open up meshes, we now have a duplicate copy of our FBX in here. So we no longer need to worry about this one out here because we made a copy of it inside of our project by dragging it into our folder. Then we can expand our Unity so y'all can see it. Here we can select this and go on the right side inside of the inspector. We'll see model rig animation material. We want to select extract textures first, and it should bring you straight to your meshes folder. Hit select. And then if it does not, I'll show you how to path through with this next one. So first we hit textures, then we hit extract materials. And if you happen to not be in your folder, you would just go to wherever your projects folder is, to your game project. Then you go to your assets and your folder you're looking for, and you select the folder. And what we did here was we extracted our textures, then we extracted our material. And by doing it in that order, it'll properly show up on your object, and we can drag this object into our world. Now it's here, it's just very small. And I'll look at addressing this later on how to properly scale it on the export. But for now, just know that all you have to do is scale it up right here by selecting the scale tool or hitting R on the keyboard and then scaling it up to the size you want. Then W or any of these to move it around. All right, real quick, to add to the scaling issue and show you the problem that you can fix right here by when we drag it into the world. Um, if you select your fence right here and it's coming into the world real tiny, like you see here, all you have to do is select the file that we imported. And over here under model, so not under materials, but under model. So just like we did before with materials, we just go over to model and we change this. We can scale this up to change the size of it out here. So how do we look at it? We can just do it like that, put it out in the world, and then we can scale this and we can scroll to the bottom and hit apply. So whenever we scale it up and we hit apply, it'll adjust the proper scaling. And now anytime we add this to the world, it'll be properly scaled. So from what I can tell, it seems like the proper scaling is to set this to 40 or 42. and then hit apply. And now when we drop it in the world, it'll be roughly the correct size for our game asset inside Unity. So that's how you can adjust or fix the object before dropping it into the world. Now let's pick up where we left off. As you want, then W or any of these to move it around. And you'll see as we position it into place, like let's say I wanted to put it between these walls so I couldn't go outside of here, right? Like I wanted to put a fence here for some reason in my game. I could do that and then duplicate it. And when I walk over here, you'll notice there is a very big problem because a person or somebody might think that a fence is solid. In this case, it is not solid. How do we make it solid? Well, these are the two different type of assets we have, our solids and non-solids. Well, there's more than that, but in terms of 3D modeling, you want to have a collider or no collider objects. So what we would do is we would select our object out here. I'll just put it right here. And then on the right, we can add a component. And just so you know, before I go into this, if you happen to go into your console or you see errors down here on the import, don't worry about it. Just go to console and hit clear. That's just an error. Sometimes it shows errors when it's importing things while it's trying to properly align the texture and everything with the material and the object. So in order to make, back to what we were doing, in order to make this fence or whatever object we have a solid, we would go to fence and we would add component and type col or the beginning of collider. And here we can add a box collision. Now, if you notice your box collision is huge, all you have to do is make sure that you're selected on your box, so your fence box, and we'll just type 0.1 here. So we scale down this collider to be the size of the object or close to. And then we can turn on this edit collider right here to better see these dots. I don't know if you can see them. These dots will edit the exact position or walls of the collider. And we put those into place. And now the fence has an actual solid object. So now when we move it around, we'll be able to actually take the object and create a barrier. And then now when we play test, we'll actually be able to run into them and not pass through them, which is what we're looking for when it comes to creating barriers and solid objects. We can also stand on top of them, if assuming I can land up there, because this controller is an older one, so it's kind of busted. But here you can see I can now stand on top of the object, and I can run into the object, can't pass through it. So that's what we're looking for with collision. Now there is another way to do collision, which I'll show you real quick as well. If we turn off our box collider and we go to add component and we type in collision again, but this time we use mesh collision, we can see here this object has a mesh. And if we turn on convex, it'll use the shape of the object to create the collision. The only problem with this is it's how do I put this? It's complicated for the computer to do this with a lot of objects. So we don't want to do this with tons and tons of objects. We generally want to try to use basic collision as much as we can to optimize for games. But you can use mesh colliders, especially for objects that just aren't standard shapes like cone, cube, capsule, or sphere. And then we'll go ahead and test this out. If you click here, this is turned off right now. So now we're just using the mesh collider. And we'll see if this works. It should work, but we'll see. We'll test it out. This is part of game testing, right? Nope, did not work. Proved me wrong. So why didn't this work? Well, the reason it didn't work is because this fence object doesn't actually have the mesh. So if we were to use this right here and do mesh colliders on all these, it should work. But the problem is each one of these is getting its individual own mesh collider. And like I told you before, that can be troublesome when it comes to collision on a large scale. So now if we test it out, you'll see when I run into it, it should no longer let me pass through, but now it'll have multiple collisions. And you can see I'm running into it, which is good, but also bad in the way that we did it. And you'll notice it's also harder for me to stand on top of it because each collision I have to stand on top of. So it's generally good to have like one long collision if you're creating walls or floors or things, because having multiple can create hangups and issues with the actual controller or the player. So yeah, that's how you export from Maya, import it into Unity, add collisions, and troubleshoot collisions. Hope you enjoyed the video.